Hey, what's up guys, it's Study here, and this is another video update on the Shockwave Totem Warrior character that I'm playing. So, since last time, I'm playing hardcore and I reached at level 29 in Act 2 to the Titan/Colossus boss. He like put his dagger in the earth and pushes forward, so that one-shot me. So I had to start over, and this is already next character, but the same build. I'm level 47 Warbringer. I'm getting pretty close to end of Act 3. I'm quite a bit over leveled here because I had to farm a lot, to get better gear. Because I did quite a lot of changes to my character at some point, and yeah, this farm took a long time, so I had to farm a lot. So let me continue. I'm gonna play here, and we're gonna talk about the build. So I managed to finally switch fully to a full Totem DPS build. Like, I don't have to do any self-attack shenanigans, anything like that. Just place totems ahead of you, let them attack enemies. Profit. You pick up the loot while totems keep killing stuff. So yeah, I would say at this stage, the build actually feels super smooth. Yeah, defenses honestly are great. Damage feels great as well. The fact that I'm over level doesn't really help with damage, right? Because we're still capped to the skill gem level limit. So yeah, it's not like I get like a lot of damage from extra levels here. The only problematic part though about the build is the mana cost. Yeah, really hard to sustain mana. I chug my mana flask a lot. The mana cost of totems is high. The mana cost of curse that I'm using is also high, but I barely ever use the curse skill, honestly. So yeah, here's like how the gameplay looks like. You just place totems in like a chain in the map and let totems attack monsters. Maybe sometimes they kill monsters behind you, so it's quite important to have a decent loot filter that highlights items that potentially could drop off screen. And let's take a look, I guess, at skill setup first, right? So which skills, with which support gems am I using? So in the beginning of Act 3, you can get the Lesser Jeweler Orb, which allows you to get a fourth or like a third support gem for a skill. So my Shockwave Totem is a full link now with 3 supports. So here I tried to list gems in order of importance. Even though initially we have Ray Shield and Mace Strike, you can't put them below in the list. So here at the top, even though I barely ever use Mace Strike. So my Mace Strike, instead of being the main single attack DPS ability against bosses, now I barely ever use it, right? I only rely on Totem DPS, like I said. And I have links to Rage support, Life Thief, and Mana Thief, or Soul Thief, that is. So yeah, sometimes if I have some time to attack the boss when it's like stunned, and I don't need to replace totems or casting curse, I could do an attack or two, get some rage to increase my totem's DPS, and yeah, get some life and mana back from it. But again, I barely ever do this. So yeah, the most important skill gem is of course Shockwave Totem. It's linked to Overabundance support to get +1 totem to it. Jagged Ground support and Inspiration support. So Jagged Ground I started using only once I got a third totem from tree. When I had only 2 totems, I think using Jagged Ground is not good enough, and I was using Brutality support. But now that we have 3, even 4 totems I have right now, actually. And the total DPS, by the way, is 694 times 4 totems, right? So DPS is like 2,500 at this point. So because there is a chance to spawn Jagged Ground, 50%, multiple totems have like a really decent chance to spawn 2 or even more Jagged Grounds, like throughout the duration of the totem. And because all the totems, you try to place them against bosses close to each other, they can overlap explosions from different Jagged Grounds spawned by different totems. And in the end, I did some math, right? So based on this DPS that's shown here, actually, okay, on the skill gem itself, we can see that initial slam of a totem deals 357% of damage. And the Jagged Ground's eruption is only 77%. I was actually checking the calculation different level of the skill gem, but there was like 21% of its slam damage. So basically, if you have only 1 Jagged Ground near the totem, it's gonna be 21% more DPS. But if you have 2 Jagged Grounds, it's gonna be already 42% more DPS, right? So 42% more DPS support is already better than Brutality support, which is 35. And yeah, like I said, so 3 or even 4 totems are much more consistent at spawning multiple Jaggy rounds. So I think Jaggy rounds is really good support here, yeah. And I have to use Inspiration support to reduce the mana cost, because otherwise mana cost is pretty brutal. And the reason why mana cost is so high is because I'm trying to increase the level of all the melee skill gems from my items as much as I can, which means my skill level is actually 19. It's nature level 11, and then +1 from corruption, +7 from my gear, global modifiers. And yeah, extra levels to totem like give it a lot of extra mana cost. Okay, so the second most usable skill is Enfeeble Curse. So it debuffs enemies, making them deal less damage. I only use it on bosses only, honestly. I don't even bother using that in maps like Curse and Ray monsters. Just against bosses. So it's linked to persistent support to increase skill effect duration. It's a more skill effect duration multiplier. We also have increased skill effect duration from passive tree, so duration of the curse in the end is 12.6 seconds. So pretty decent duration, right? And then it's linked to hiding curse, increases effectiveness of curse to make it so that enemies deal even less damage. And life tap support. So without life tap, the mana cost would be like 90, which is a big portion of my mana, as you can see. And life tap converts it to life cost. And it costs a lot of life actually to cast the curse. So I'm trying to like not over spam it, right? So it's 100 life cost and I have almost 1300 life. So gotta be careful with casting that, even though like, yeah, it's not so big of a problem. So next gem I use is Time of Need, is a persistent buff skill. It basically heals me every now and then. It has anti-synergy actually with increasing skill effect duration on tree. So I still kind of like using it. So it's not only heals, but sometimes removes curses and elemental ailments. It's really hard for this skill to actually hit like the heal on you at proper timing, but sometimes it helps against certain boss fights. So I guess like I'll take it. So I linked it to Vitality support, which gives some extra life regen, but reserves more spirit, by the way. You get another 30 spirits from Act 3 quest, or like boss skill, that is. And to Clarity support. So this is another 10 spirit reservation and mana regen. Like I said, mana is a bit of a problem, so Clarity is pretty helpful. Before I switched into Resolute Technique Keystone on Tree, I was using Precision support, which increases accuracy. I only switched to Clarity very recently. And by the way, I just realized I could use another Jeweler Orb to get another support here and use the support gem that reduces the skill effect duration. So this way, this buff would trigger more frequently, because right now it's only 16 seconds between triggers of the buff. It's like it's forever, right? So that's something I should and I will do. So yeah, make sure... what's the name of the support gem actually? Well, the one that makes it so it's less skill effect duration. And then we'll have Leap Slam. So I'm trying to not level up Leap Slam, by the way. I think the lowest level you can have is level 7. And it's better to keep it at this level, because we don't really want extra damage from it. We want to just use it for mobility every now and then to maybe get out of a situation where you get surrounded by enemies, or on the boss fight you need to jump somewhere, like, you know, to avoid some explosion. And dodge roll is not good enough for this sometimes. So yeah, because extra levels would increase the mana cost even further. We don't want another mana cost increase for another skill gem. So it's linked to Martial Tempo to make it a little bit faster jumping. And I have Holy Descent support. It creates Consecrated Grounds on landing, so can't help with life recovery sometimes, but this Consecrated Grounds is really tiny. It's like a really tiny radius. So kind of hard to rely on that. But it can heal you, it can heal your totems even. So that's something, yeah. And then two skill gems that I use more rarely. There's Resonating Shields, which basically allows you to actively block. So you raise your shields during this. And it does some damage and like what else does it do even? It breaks enemies' armor, yeah. So I don't really rely on this damage or armor break at all, but... It's kind of like a better version of Raise Shield, because you can link it to Unbreakable Support, which increases your stun threshold. I didn't really bother to try to use any other supports here. Yeah, because I think Well, I mean, it's not necessary. Maybe we could find something, but I didn't try. And Bone Shatter, I used to use it a lot, right? Before, when I had only 2 totems. But once I got 3 totems, I stopped using Bone Shatter. Like, it doesn't really help with clear speeds anymore. My totems clear really well. So I still have, like, what, Impact Shockwave here and Fire Infusion supports. But again, like, I don't use the skills, so whatever. So this is my skills. About support gems. So yeah, big news. Apparently, Shockwave Totem, the best support gem for it, Astral Projection. Apparently, this support gem doesn't work with Shockwave Totem. So this support is supposed to make it so that totems cast the Nova of damage, not around the totem itself, but it casts on the enemy, right? Like at a distance. So that would make this totem an actual, like, ranged totem. And it would make both clear speeds and both sync attack DPS like more consistent for sure. So this support gem apparently doesn't work with Shockwave, like I said. A lot of people reported that on the bug report forum threads. To my knowledge, GGG didn't respond to any of those reports yet, and they didn't fix the bug in recent patch notes either. So yeah, we still kind of like, we don't know whether it will work or no. But honestly, even now, without really having the support gem, it feels like very nice to play it. Also, by the way, speaking about clear speeds and chance to hit enemy, the increased area effect to attacks, for example, like these 2 nodes affect Shockwave Totems, and I had these points, these passives at some points on my tree. So that, yeah, that's increased the radius of a slam from like 3 meters to 3.3 meters. So they made it a little bit better. And yeah, another thing I wanted to mention, so instead of Time of Needs, if you don't feel like trying to rely on this very occasional heal, there's another pretty decent reservation we can use, which is this one, the Overwhelming Presence. It reduces enemies' stun threshold. It's also 30 spirit reservation. So we do stun pretty consistently because we are physical melee build, right, basically. And both physical and melee have like better multiplier to stuns against enemies. So yeah, we're stunning enemies quite consistently, even bosses too. So that will work well, yeah. But I still, playing hardcore as well, I thought it's a good idea to get some occasional extra heal, which could potentially save me from a bad situation, right? So that's it for my skill gems that I use, and this is my tree now. So I'm just gonna show it. And we're gonna talk about it. So here it is. Initially I had the tree like next to the start, basically, right here. So after that I was trying to go beeline straight through here to +1 totem. And get your 3rd totem basically as soon as possible after taking the initial notes that I had on the previous video. I also re-spec'd the passive here at the start, so I travel through stats. I removed the flat armor, so this flat armor is really useful in like Act 1, but at this point we have like too much armor, so these are irrelevant. A little bit of life regen is also kind of irrelevant. Having increased armor and life regen and armor here is still pretty good though, I think. So I still had this increased melee damage initially, but then yeah, like once you get closer to +1 totem, like these nodes, Ancestral Artifice, it's a good idea to spec out of this damage nodes to be able to get it sooner, right? Because +1 totem, like when you have 3 totems, it feels infinitely better. And yeah, once you get 3rd totem, you stop using self-attack skills pretty much and all that. So after that, once I got +1 totem, I started... well, yeah, I spec'd into plus attack speed here to get totems attack faster. So basically then I collected enough points to be able to spec out of them and to repath through this part of the tree so that we could travel past Giant's Blood. So this makes it so that you can use a two-hander weapon in one hand, and we can start using using two-handers. We dual wield two-handers. So yeah, we're gonna talk about that later. I mean, it's very powerful for totem builds because you can stack more plus level 2 melee skills. And this is pretty much the only stat that we want on gear that actually gives so much extra DPS to totems. After that, I started traveling towards another +1 totem here, Watchtowers. And now I took it. And after that, I took Resolute Technique to not have any problems with evasion. So before I took Resolute Technique, I had quite a lot of different dexterity nodes to get extra accuracy. And I had precision support on my time of need, like I said, to increase accuracy there as well. Because it's a really good idea to make sure that when you click on Shockwave Totem tooltip here, right, the chance to hit would be 100%, or before you get Resolute Technique, at least like 96+%, right? Try to keep this number high, so that's like it's basically DPS multiplier. Because at some points I remember I noticed that I dropped already to like 90% chance to hit, and it felt pretty bad. So yeah, with passive 3 I try to be quite flexible. So respects, they cost more and more gold the higher level you are, but still it's really good idea to keep respecking, basically, because, for example, travel into this totem node, it's 8 passives from here. It's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So instead of, when you get levels, getting like some nodes that don't really give much, I was taking some extra nodes at the start, so I had increased their effect again, I had increased melee damage here. But yeah, so like once you calculate that you have enough points to finally get the +1 totem, I spec out of these 4 points, I spec out of something else. So for example, quite often I had beef here, which is quite a lot of health and helpful to kill bosses. And yeah, you just, you zoom, you immediately take the +1 totem and you feel like you become way stronger. Here are my 4 totems, creating a lot of Jagged Grounds. By the way, the Jagged Grounds also create some extra screen pollution, so sometimes it's harder to see bosses' abilities, especially if the boss is like tiny. For example, I was fighting this Viper boss. What's the name of it? Oh wait, can I see the different time era? I'm not sure if I can. Well, anyway, so yeah, it's sometimes hard to see their abilities, but it's not too big of a problem. And I guess about the gear, right? So let's see what gear I have. So the charm I have, I think it's really good charm. It prevents you from getting stunned for a short duration, 2.5%. So after you get stunned, you actually don't get stunned. So two times you're immune to stun, and it's pretty good. With our stun threshold is pretty high because we have a lot of health. But if you do get stunned, you actually don't get stunned. So it's pretty consistent. Before this charm, like if your resistances are not capped at not 75%, I would recommend to use the elemental charm. Like for example, lightning resist charm, that makes it so that's like you trigger it when you get hit by lightning damage, you get 25 lightning resist, right? Like that's, for example, pretty good. So at the beginning of Act 3, like I mentioned, I was able finally to rearrange all the tree to spec into Giant's Blood and to get 2 handers in one hand. Wait, I didn't want to get here. Go back. So yeah, I stopped using shield, basically. Even though I still have shield and weapon swap, just so that really rarely I would use this resonating shield to block enemies' attacks. For example, it was really helpful versus the monkey boss in Act 3. But yeah, so I lost a lot of defenses, and I wanted to get my resistances capped again. And I was farming for a long time the first zone. So basically, you teleport to town. You control-click, you create new here, new instance. And from the town, you go either left or right. You need to stay on grass, you don't go into, into deserts. And you can find 2 guaranteed rare monsters here. So I was basically farming those 2 rare monsters on repeats until I was able to finally like craft decent gear with armor and resistances, basically. And it took me, I don't know, almost like 10 hours of non-stop grinding, I feel like. So yeah, they can spawn quite far away, but yeah, here we can lip slam like this, for example. And here's 2 rare monsters. I equipped all the rarity gear that I had on me, like increase items, rarity drop. I had 41 rarity. So you kill 2 rare monsters here, you open the rare chest. And sometimes you get some decent items. I was also picking up every single blue item. just to sell it to vendor for gold. And then you click teleport. You go into town portal. You might as well click whale, go to waypoints, click on town. You appear in town on the waypoints, which is pretty far away from the door. So what I was doing is I went through stash tabs. I would put all the items I just dropped into a dump tab, just dump all the loot there. So the dump tab is actually full right now, so I can't do this. And I would go to the entrance again. I would click control left click and create new zone and kill 2 more rare monsters again. So this way I was able to get all the gear that I got now. So 200 weapons. You want your 200 weapons to be low tiers, like low level, but high item level. This way the strength requirements will not be too high, so you will be able to like overcome this triple attribute requirement for weapons. So this weapon requires only 38 strength, so triple that is gonna be 114, and I have like 162 strength even. So yeah, I got a couple of those weapons. I mean, I was just picking up every single mace, basically, and I was transmuting and augmenting that until I get. So I got even some spare weapons, another +3 here and +3 here. So they're obtainable, but yeah, it takes a while to get it. But because I was farming gear with resistances anyway, it wasn't too hard. And the gear have helmets with life, resist, some intelligence actually, which is quite helpful with being able to cast the curse. The body armor with quite a lot of armor, life to resistances. Yeah, make sure to add sockets to gear with artificer's orbs. They are right there. And put resistance runes in your body armor and other pieces of armor. So it really helps with capping your elemental resistances. Having a lot of armor on body armor is quite important because we multiply this by 80% here. It's like additive multiplier basically, but still. So my total armor right now is actually 1700, and I had it since level like 43, so that was really good mitigation against physical damage. So my gloves have life, mana, resist, and chaos stress even. My previous gloves used to have +1 to all melee skills. I'm not sure where they are even. So yeah, it's possible to have +1 to all melee skills on gloves as well, and on amulets, which I do have it here. Big life and +1 to all melee skills. So again, the most important stat to have on gear, +1 to melee skills. These skills totems life and totem damage really significantly. We don't really care about any other stats on weapons, just plus level to melee skills. It also scales the totem mana cost, sadly, so yeah, we gotta overcome this difficulty. My rings have life, resist basically, small resist here, life to resist, small life though. The belt, 2 resistances on an armor base. That's a really good belt base. Implicit gives armor, so I recommend to use this one if you can. And boots with movement speed. Yeah, on boots we value movement speed over everything else, and then resistance, and then life, I guess. So yeah, my life flask, I mean, mana flask, just something, just transmute and augment your life and mana flask. Most likely we get something useful. And on weapon swap I have shields to use active block, sometimes to block some boss abilities. I think that's about it, that's the update. So character sheet, actually, we didn't really look at it, right? So almost 1300 life. Almost capped resistances. My lightning rest is a little bit uncapped, but I think it's not too big of a problem. Especially in Act 3. I'm gonna get to Cruel difficulty soon, so maybe it's gonna be a good idea to try to get some extra lightning rest. Especially since every act we finish it, we get -10 to all rest, right, I think. And yeah, so this is the defenses. I also lost the block chance, basically, right? Because I'm not really using shields anymore. Yeah, I wanted to also mention something that I found out, or actually chat told me. So initially you can see stats of your totems. I mean, you can see damage in stat, but you can't see defensive stats. So you can apparently see them if you place a totem. So you need to go outside of town, you summon a totem, and then you can scroll down here, and you can see how much health totems have. 2.5k health. Armor, evasion, how much resistances they have. So you can see they have 0 resists. I didn't need to spec so far into any totem defenses. they actually don't die since they have so many extra levels. I mean, sometimes they die, but yeah, you just resummon them more. It's not a problem right now. Totems rebuild is not a problem. But if it becomes a problem, we have it here. We travel through beef, which gives us a lot of health. And we can take some totem defenses here. Really huge, good, beefy totem defenses. And we have these good nodes. There's also good right there. Alright, so yeah, I think this is the end of today's updates about the builds. If you have any questions, leave them in the YouTube video or come to my Twitch stream, ask them in chat. If you want me to mention something else in the future video updates, yeah, just place your suggestions also in YouTube comments. And we'll see you guys next time. Take care of your totems. Bye bye.